क्लीं कैवल्य क्लीं कैवल्य क्लीं कैवल्य
Namaste. Welcome to Kaivalya Yoga Gurukula. Let's begin the class with 3 Oms. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha Hari Om. Namaste and welcome again. So we will continue in today's class where we left off in the previous class, namely understanding in very simple layman terms what is the Sankhya philosophy and how we could begin to understand our relation as individuals with this cosmos. That is the aim here, right? It is not to have an intellectual discussion because there are so many commentaries on the Sankhya itself by Ishwara Krishna from 1800 years ago. Then you had Vachaspati Mishra and so on and so forth. So there is tons of information on the intricacies of each and every element here discussed, and a lot of it. Many of that I really tested my patience to read through, but it never really registered very deeply. So I'm not going to ever try and attempt a scholarly interpretation of the Sankhya. It's meant for truly learned scholars, and I'm not one of them. I just want to make it clear because the moment you start Googling and going to the internet, you will see so much material available. So that is all for your further studies. If any of you are interested, you're most welcome to do your own research. But here, my aim here in this presentation and the aim for me to study Sankhya is how do I apply it in my sadhana? How do I apply it in my spiritual practice? So that was the main aim. That was the main aim here, right? And it is that intention that I share any of these scriptures, Vedanta, Upanishads, whatever we study in the course of this, even the Yoga Sutras, it is to study how will it apply to us. Otherwise, it becomes, for me at least, it becomes a dry scholarly knowledge, if you will. It doesn't have application. Okay, so enough said. Let me get cracking because we have so much to cover in this presentation. So where were we last time? We were in this particular scene. Well, 1 minute. Let me go back. Go to this one. There you go. So we were in this particular scenario where we talked about Purusha and Prakriti. Purusha and Prakriti. And then we touched upon Mahat. Hang on 1 second. I believe there's an echo. I don't know why that would be. Is it okay now? Let me put this also off. Okay, should be okay now. I probably had some computer speaker on. Okay. It's gone? Okay, thank you. Thank you for your feedback. Apparently that echo, whatever that was there, is gone. So, okay. Um, let me get my thoughts together again. So we were in the stage of Purusha and Prakriti. We talked about Purusha as to how originally Sankhya has been interpreted by scholars as every one of us is a Purusha and therefore there's multiplicity. And that Purusha and Prakriti will always be separate and so on. But there's a Vedantic approach which says everything is absorbed into the Purusha. I subscribe to that. That is how it makes sense to me. I made peace with that. Right or wrong, it doesn't matter. I think everything in spirituality is a matter of perception. Okay. Then we talked about how Purusha and Prakriti, because they are close together, let's go back to that chart and just touch upon that. Purusha and Prakriti being close together just by that association, okay, a sankalpa happens. There is a sankalpa, and energy happens, because that's a mystery. Nobody has been able to explain. So what happens here? If Purusha and Prakriti are always separate and they're always like this, never one, then how does everything else, all the other elements come into being? How does it even happen? So the way I made peace with it is because of that association, something happens. How do I understand that? Because of in our everyday life, right? If you're with somebody, some energy interaction happens, right? Either there is a friction, or there is romance, or there is exchange of some ideas, vibrations. Something happens just by you being close to somebody, satsangam. Just by being there, an energy is there. Correct? Even if it's a virtual space, you and I together in this satsang, there is something happening, right? Of course, now because there is communication. But even let's assume that we were just sitting together and meditating, the presence of somebody else close to you triggers something in us, good or bad, up or down, whatever, but it triggers something in us, correct? So that is what to me is in Purusha and Prakriti being closely associated triggers an energy called Sankalpa, and that Sankalpa is a will. That will is what triggers everything else. And so that is how I understand as the Supreme Being willed himself to become the many, that kind of concept. So before we go beyond Mahat, Prakriti is in her avyakta state. She's unmanifest here with Purusha, right? She is unmanifest. Purusha is always in the unmanifest stage. Purusha is that person we can never understand and never see and never comprehend. It's like that kind of a place. So Purusha is there. Prakriti is in her unmanifest state. Okay. How do you explain this Prakriti in our unmanifest state? Let me give an analogy so we are very clear about it, because we'll come back to that when we talk of when we study Yoga Sutras. We'll make a reference to it, but then nevertheless it's important to understand she is there and yet she is unmanifest. In other words, think of you have a glass door. Okay, think of you have a glass door, and in that glass door you have just cleaned it. It's absolutely clean. Not even a speck. You can see the rains outside very clearly, almost as if it's actually you are there in the rain or whatever scenery outside behind the glass door. You can see the landscape. If it's raining, you can see the rain. If it's snowing, you can see the snow. You can see children playing maybe through the glass so clearly. It's as if the glass door doesn't exist. The glass doesn't exist, but it is there, correct? That is that unmanifest Prakriti. She is not there and yet she is there. So eventually in Yoga Sutras, when Patanjali says Chitta Vritti Nirodha, he's talking of one vritti finally which has to go. He's not talking of all the modifications. He's talking of one vritti. He's not saying vrittayaha or any plural there. He says Chitta Vritti Nirodha. What is that vritti? What is that one modification? This plain glass, this unmanifest Prakriti also disappears, and Purusha absorbs everything into it. Something for us to just keep it in mind. This Prakriti we talk of here, at this point here, Prakriti is all this, but this is the manifested Prakriti. Everything that you see around you, me, the camera, microphone, trees, landscape, everything, right? All the 5 elements. They are all manifest form of Prakriti. That's what we're going to understand creation. But she draws everything unto herself. Now I'm using this masculine feminine simply because that is the metaphorical way Vedanta has taught us, and we just continue with that. It has nothing to do with man and woman as you and I understand. You and I, we are all part of this female principle, Prakriti. Okay, which is explained even in Puranas, in Upanishads. There's all of us are Radhas, and there is only one Krishna. It's all ideas from this only. So Prakriti is all this manifest. So she becomes this multifold creation. The Shakti principle becomes all of this, and then she draws all this unto herself. She becomes the unmanifest. Sankhya says that's it. She goes back to unmanifest stage. Purusha is where Purusha is, and it just goes on. But Vedanta teaches us that even that is finally absorbed into the Purusha Tattva. Okay? So let us understand this Prakriti here at this point in an unmanifest stage. What is unmanifest? Think of a glass door analogy. You might come up with a better analogies. Do that as homework. Think of what is this unmanifest state where she is there and yet I cannot see her, but yet she is there. It's like a clean glass. That's the thing I came up with. But you can think of something as well for you to make sense. If this makes sense to you, then that's good. Then because of that association, Mahat. Mahat is that brilliance. When we talk of Dhiyo Yona Prachodaya, the Dhi, the Buddhi, the intuition, the ultimate enlightenment, this is the Mahat, the brilliance that happens. Dhiyo, illumine my mind, go back to that illumine state. Because from there, everything else is seen. So, illumination happens, Mahat. There is a brilliance there. Science calls it Big Bang. I don't know if that is the same as this. I really don't want to compare science with this because there's so much debate and it becomes technical at that point. But it's important for us to understand that there is some kind of similarity. So they talk of a Big Bang, here we talk of this Mahat. And this was talked millions of years ago. I'm sorry, thousands and thousands of years ago. Maybe a couple of millions ago. I don't know. Anyway, so the point here is Mahat. Then from Mahat, from that Mahat, now all of this doesn't take time to come. Okay, everything happens in a split second. All of this, but we are slowing down. Think of you fast asleep, and you open your eyes. There is brilliance, and immediately everything falls in place. Right, all the senses are in action. All the entire creation comes just like that. So the moment you open your eyes, everything comes into consciousness, and you can draw all of that in deep sleep. So sleeping and awake is kind of a good analogy for you to understand how these things happen. Okay, so now let's go to the chart here. Okay, and I'm just keeping that so you'll know what I'm doing. So I am on the square below the Mahat. So I'm going to write what happens when Mahat happens. From there comes Aham Kara. Ahamkara. Ahamkara. Ahankara comes. The I. The first I is born. Just consciousness, I. Right? When think again, go back to the analogy of waking up from sleep. So even before you identify, even before, let's say, before I identify myself as Sundar, there's a split second where I just open my eyes, consciousness comes first. The I principle comes, then I become Sundar. It all happens in a fraction second. But that's what is explained here. The I. What happens when the I comes? So this is where the most fundamental concepts came about. This is where really so I, now Ahankara, gave birth to three things. These three things are not part of the 25 elements. This is part of Ahankara. But without understanding that, we can't go any further. Right? These were the three things. What are they? Three qualities appeared. We'll explore that. We all have heard of this 100 times by now. If you are Sattva, Rajas, and tamas. Sattva, rajas, and tamas. So three qualities emerge in the I. When the I comes in, three qualities come. That's it. Please keep this in mind. When we talk of I want to be God and I want to be aham brahmasmi and all of that, the fact that I is there, the three qualities are there. The fact that three qualities are there, you are that much down away from being the Purusha. That much further away from the original goal of no births anymore, moksha and all of that. Because ultimately when the Purusha in you draws everything unto himself, then there is no birth for you. Okay? So until then, all of this keeps happening. Purusha comes back again and again and again through us, takes millions of births, hundreds or thousands of births, going through all of that. So something to keep in mind. The moment as long as I feel the I, the gunas exist. And as long as the gunas exist, all the boxes are going to get filled. But before we fill that box, what are these gunas? So now sattva, let me write it down here. Okay. Sattva, we all understand as piousness and purity and all of that. I want to give a different take on this. Okay. I will call sattva as creativity. Creativity. Sattva is creativity. Sattva is creativity. Okay, creativity. What does that mean? Let us say that I am drinking this glass of water. What am I doing? I'm engaging in an action. But before this action, what happened? There was a thought in my mind, right? A simple thought appeared that I need water or thirst, right? An idea is always sattva. Idea is always sattva. Idea, what are the qualities of an idea? Idea is very creative because it's an idea, right? Then you bring a color to the idea, whether you can do it or not do it, whether you like it or not, all that is qualities later on. But purely an idea comes up. That idea is pure. That is why we say sattva is pure element. Idea is simply an idea. It is not yet manifested. Idea is there. Idea doesn't have a color. Idea doesn't have anything. It's just a flash that comes to you. Right? Very light. Very light. That is the sattva quality, creativity. The creativity in you is sattva. A painter does a wonderful painting. A dancer does a wonderful dancing. That's why creative arts are more linked to creativity, sattva. A creative individual thinks out of the box, think out of the box, be more creative, be more productive. We say all of that, right? Because we are trying to take the mind to the sattva place. Now, all of these, as we explained, don't think of them as watertight compartments. It's far, far from the truth. We are analyzing that mixture that we call life, that mixture that we call creation. We are taking it thread by thread. But the moment you let go, they're all coming back. So don't analyze them thread by thread and say, how does this go with this? It's all a complete mix. The ahankara is now filled with these three gunas. The three gunas have manifested themselves in this creation. We are experiencing all of this, right? We'll explore this more. But understand at this point, sattva, don't think of it as good or bad. That is furthest away from truth. That is one way of interpreting it. When you apply these gunas, the three forces, actually these are three forces that come with ahankara. Ahankara has three qualities: sattva, rajas, and tamas. Neither is good or bad. Okay? There's no concept of good or bad in this as yet. We apply which is good and which is bad and all of that in application in everyday life. We can understand that. So creativity, let's keep that. We'll come back to that in a bit. Then we go to the next one. What is the next one? The next one is rajas. So for rajas, I'm going to use a red ink. I hope I got it red. Let's see. Okay, I got it red. So rajas is red. So I'm going to say, what is rajas? Let's be simple. We'll call it action. Rajas is action. Now, when I have a particular thought in mind, like a thought comes, water. I feel a drink of water. So an idea comes. It's pure idea, right? But then now I make up my mind to follow it. So I follow the idea. I pick up the glass, I take a sip of water. So there is an action involved, an action to manifest that idea. To bring that idea into reality, I make an action. I make an effort. I've not yet drunk the water. I take my hand, take it out, pick up the glass, bring it to the lips. Right? And begin sipping. Now, once I finish sipping, that means action is over. What happens? Once I finish sipping, what happens to that idea? The idea comes to a state of inertia. Correct? Idea was born, drink water. Action happened. I picked up the tumbler. I was sipping water. And then I put it down. A sense of inertia comes. For that particular idea, there'll be other thoughts, other ideas. But that particular idea has reached its culmination, has reached its end, has reached a state of inertia. What is inertia? Let's go back to the chart. Inertia is tamas. I'll use blue for inertia. I'll call it inertia. You know what? I'm going to change. I'm not going to call it inertia. I'm going to call it manifestation. Inertia is what happens. Manifestation. Manifestation. Okay. All right. So now we got these three. Let me go back to that. Sorry. Okay, hold on to that. Think about this. Okay, meditate on this for let's contemplate on this for a few minutes before we proceed. Creativity, action, manifestation. Manifestation. It manifests. What is manifested? The idea found its way through action and found its way in manifestation. That is the end. Dissolution. Okay, you have creation, then you maintain that idea, you develop that idea, maintenance, dissolution. These are three forces of the universe. These three forces come in our mind every split second, correct? An idea is there. It could be followed with an action. If it doesn't, it stays as an idea only. Right? So there is this idea, action and manifestation. So if I'm sitting on a chair, then this chair was an idea in somebody's head. Okay, I just want to make this clear once and for all. Creativity, an idea came. Instead of sitting on the ground, how about something like a chair? A vision comes, an idea. Then, just an idea comes. How about making myself more comfortable? Then I start building a vision around it. And I start drawing, I start collecting materials, I start going here and there, working hard, getting materials, meeting people, designing a chair. Action, rajas, activities generated around that idea. Why? Because I want that idea to manifest. So I'm generating activity. Then I work on it. Okay, hammer, nail, saw, all that. Wood, apparently it's a wooden chair. So I'm doing all of that, building the chair. Once the chair is done, what happens to the idea of the chair? It's found its completion. So what is tamas therefore? Tamas is manifestation. It is also inertia in a context. Inertia means lack of movement and all that. But if you think of this idea has reached its state of inertia. It won't move anymore. Because why? Why won't it move? Because it's found its fulfillment. Fulfillment is another word for tamas. Now, whether tamas is laziness, all of that is how we apply this fundamental universal force in our everyday life. You are hungry, a thought comes, a fruit appears in your mind, let us say. Hopefully it's not pizza, it's a fruit. Then you walk into your kitchen, dig into your fruit basket and say which of these fruits you like. You like an apple or a banana or an orange, what is there, musambi, whatever is there. You go dig out, all of this is rajas. take a knife, cut it, rajas, 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 start eating rajas. Once you finished eating, you're happy. That thought of wanting a fruit has reached a state of inertia manifestation. Please understand this, because when we talk of gunas, we're thinking of it only as human qualities. We're not thinking it as a universal force. This one, creativity in the universe, there is rajas and action which is bringing this creativity into manifestation. And once it's manifest, then that creation finds completion. That is what we're going to understand in the boxes below. Don't simply think of it as personality and qualities. That is a limited way to apply it. Think of this now, you're going back into its in your cosmic way and understanding. Why am I saying this? Is because the entire creation, everything that comes now in the boxes below, they are all understood. All of them, all of this, from the ahankara onwards, because the moment I comes, these three forces are in effect. The I is born, the I maintains itself, the I gets dissolved. Sattva, Rajas. Because the moment the I gets dissolved into Mahat, dissolution has happened. Right? The fact that I has come into being, I, Sattva is there. The fact that I is maintaining itself, that means the I is alive, the I is conscious, Rajas is there, keeping that alive. Right? And as long as that is there, this I will continue to work. The day we go back into Mahat, dissolution happens. So until then, the I will always have Sattva, Rajas, and Tamas. The I will seek to manifest, the I will seek to create, the I will seek to combine these two constantly. And so in your consciousness, whatever you see, whatever you experience, all the five elements from this chakra and below, we've touched upon chakras now. Don't go into chakras as such, but understand them as elements. So in our understanding of the spinal cord, Mahat, the brilliance, is the Ajna. From there, the I is born, and from this I, the cosmic I, all the five elements, all of that, looking down at creation, you will find that all of them are Sattva, Rajas, and Tamas in nature. Okay? Just think about it. I'm not hoping to make everything very clear right on day one, but this is how I made sense. And then this chart itself, the way we draw it is not the right way, but there is really, we don't have some really sophisticated 3D techniques to give you that 3D vision. But this is to give you an idea, laying it out in bare form. Think of Sattva, Rajas, and Tamas as creativity, performance, action, manipulation, modifications, all of that. And then manifestation of that particular creative idea. Creative is very, very, very subtle. That is why now we'll come to the three gods, the Trimurtis. What is this three concept? Triguna, Guna Rahitam. We talk of the Sadguru as Triguna Rahitam. He is above all these three. That means the Purusha, ultimate Purusha, is above all of this, right? You see it in the chart itself. You see the chart, Purusha is way up there, way up beyond all of this. But here, you have the three qualities, the three gunas, the three gods, if you will. Okay, so let's go back to that. Drawing here. So where does Brahma fit in? Brahma is creativity, right? This is why we say Brahma. Brahma is Sattva. Brahma, Sattva in nature. Brahma means big, infinite. How can you, what is the size of your idea? If somebody says, Mom, I got a good idea, your child says, and you say, okay, tell me what's the size of your idea? He'll be like, wait, what? Right? What is the size? There's no size. An idea is just idea. It has no boundaries. Right? So Brahma, creativity is infinite. Creativity cannot be confined. That is why Brahma has no temples. Brahma has no means of worship. Brahma is nothing. Brahma is that creative idea. So they say Brahma has no temples. You can't worship Brahma. Well, there are one or two beautiful temples of Brahma. In South India, I know I have went to one. Brahmapuri Ishwara, it's called. Anyway, but that's besides the point. The point here is, in general, creativity is, you can't confine creativity to anything. So that is creative. Brahma. But still we have symbols, right? Dattatreya has three heads, Brahma, Vishnu, Maheshwara, and so on. Those are all symbolic ways to understand this concept. But if you ask why Brahma is not worshipped, why Brahma is not given importance and all that, because Brahma is pure creative energy. How can you put a finger there, right? Okay, so that is Brahma. Let's go back to the drawing board here. Then what happens? Then you have action. So who is here? Action. This is Vishnu. This is Vishnu. Vishnu. Let me move that a little down. Let me hide him for a second. Why Vishnu? If you see among all the three murtis, in all our Puranas, in all our Upanishads, why do I want to keep drawing these lines? Because you will notice how all of these ideas or thought processes or schools of teaching, everything came perhaps from the Sankhya philosophy. Okay, we don't know for sure, but I would like to believe this because, like I said, because Krishna in the Gita said, I am Kapila, and Kapila was the one who gave Sankhya. In the three murtis, the one that takes avatars, the one that incarnates time and time again, one that really brings an action, takes birth as a fish, takes birth as a tortoise, takes birth as a boar, takes birth as a dwarf, a half man, half animal, and all of that, right? That evolution that we're talking about, or the incarnations of the supreme consciousness, the constant birth and rebirth, all of that is the Vishnu energy. Why? Because that is Rajas, action, maintenance of that idea. Creation has to be maintained. Then comes Dharma and all of that, right? Dharma, way of living, and all of that, teachings, schools of thought, philosophies, all of that. But this incarnation, the fact that this energy is constantly coming, incarnation is Rajas energy. You and me being born again and again and again is part of that action energy. We're not reached that state of dissolution, manifestation. Okay, so then let's go back to the drawing board. And now, what is the next one there? On top, if you see, I'm going to bring, we all know the answer for this one, I'm sure. That is Shiva or Maheshwara. Okay, Brahma, Vishnu, Maheshwara. This is how we could link the three murtis with these three forces of the cosmic eye. This is the big eye. Now, when I say I am the body and I identify myself, I am short, I am bald, I need glasses to do some reading sometimes, and all of that, is that I is not the cosmic eye at all. It is one of the boxes I'm identifying myself with. That is how small we are. This is the I with all the three forces. All the three forces. That is why in spirituality, my dear brothers and sisters, there is really no distinction between these three forces because they are all part of the I. The I Tattva has all these three gunas in them. It's not like it leans towards sattva and it doesn't like tamas. No, they are all the three. Why is Shiva manifestation? That's why he's called Bholenath. He'll give you whatever you want. He gives whatever asuras want. He gives in the stories, right? Asuras means demonic forces. The demonic forces ask him something. He says, yeah, okay, you worked hard, take it. The divine beings come and ask him something. He says, yeah, take it. He says yes to everything. Why? Because Shiva is the manifestation energy. You take an idea, you work towards an idea, the idea will find its manifestation in Shiva. So Shiva stands for manifestation, fulfillment of the idea. And that's why when we go back to that, one side is him being the Purusha. The other aspect of it, even if you see him as the God here, he is always in inertia, meditating. Parvati does all the work, correct? Shiva and Parvati, Shiva and Shakti. If you're not familiar with the Indian mythology, but most of you are. So Shiva is always meditating. Parvati does all the work. Vishnu constantly takes birth again and again, comes to save the world, teaches us how to live an enlightened lifestyle. He's playing this game, right? So he is in action mode. Brahma again, creation. He just creates and sits back. So rather than thinking them as some god sitting up there, think of them as three forces, three energies, principles, divine energy principles, because these have so many implications in our life. In the eye, the cosmic eye displays all these three. The moment the eye is born, it is always seen with the three. That is why these three elements, three forces are not discussed as three more elements. So how many elements have we covered? If you go back to the drawing here, we have covered 1, we have covered 2, 3, and 4. We only covered 4. Okay? We are not taking more than that. We have only covered 4 elements. All right. So let's go to the next one here. So this is basically to give you an idea of the 3 qualities. One is creativity, action, and manifestation. Meditate upon that before we judge that. Before we go back and judge, saying that oh, you want a sattvic person. I don't like tamasic people and all that. So the person, of course, if he exhibits laziness, inertia, I don't want to do, he has a false sense of fulfillment. So that is also tamas. But don't limit tamas to some bad quality. That is what I'm trying to say here. Because he could have a false sense of fulfillment. No, I don't want to do anything, Baba. This sadhana and all of these lectures, I am not interested. I just want to be peacefully enjoying life. Correct? That is an element of tamas, because there is no creativity there. There is no idea there. They're just saying, I don't want anything. I'm happy. Contentment. It could come. Contentment is a form of manifestation, which is a good quality. But contentment, if laziness disguises itself as contentment and comes to you, that is tamas. Both are tamasic. One is the good side of tamas. One is the negative side of tamas. Sattva can also have negative side. Baba would say, too much sattva is like tamas. Too much sattva. See, Brahma doesn't act. He creates and then he sits back. He's constantly giving ideas. Now, what is the bad side there? I'm saying bad and good, please understand. I'm just using it as a colloquial way to understand. The negative side of too much sattva, what happens? I'm applying that in our everyday life. Too much ideas. In other words, daydreaming. You're daydreaming. Oh, I wish I had done that. If I had money, I could have done this. Oh, I have this beautiful idea, this great business plan. I want to do all of this. I get a beautiful thing. Now, that is great. But then you're only into that idea stage, you don't take action, then what happens? That will be the other side of tamas. Baba would say too much sattva is tamas. So get an act. That's why he says that it's okay to meditate and all, but go out and serve in the society. Both has to be there. All the 3 has to be there. Correct? And then you learn to surrender. Surrender is that beautiful aspect of manifestation. We are so psyched ourselves that tamas is somehow bad. So we associate, if you see interpretations online, you'll be confused. You need to meditate upon this. Tamas, that is why tamas is the end of an idea. That is why Shiva meditates where? On the graveyard. What is graveyard? The end of our life. Who is there? Shiva is there. In other words, when the idea ends, this body is an idea, right? So this body was an idea in birth. It is working towards something and the body perishes in the graveyard, goes back to being manifest. This life has found its end. From sattva to rajas to tamas. Then again come back to sattva. So this cycle will go on and on and on. So tamas by itself, don't think of it as some dark forces, inertia, something to be avoided. Some parts of everything. What happens to too much rajas? Same thing. Hyperactivity, too much rajas. Every single idea you want to act it out, and then there is no fulfillment. You're not fulfilling one idea. Before it gets fulfilled, you take the other one, and everything is left unfulfilled, right? So these are all how we apply these forces in our everyday life. We can make sense with them. But these are not limited to simply personality traits, like I said. We tend to draw a lot upon this because of our exposure to Puranas, Upanishads, and the way they teach us. But we have to take a step back and say, this is a lot more than that. These three forces are forces of the Ahankara. The Ahankara, not Ahankara as pride. Okay, so same words are used in different contexts in Vedanta. Just like the word cell can be used for cell phone, cell can, a biologist will understand the word cell as something in biology. So that's and somebody else in the prison will understand cell as a cell in the prison. So these are all different meanings applied in different contexts for the same word. It is the same thing in every language. So ahankara doesn't mean pride. It can also mean in a different context. But this is ahankara is the one, the I. The I. Ahankara, the I, that you finally get to that cosmic I. Aham Brahmasmi. And then that vritti, that modification also ceases into the unmanifest Prakriti, and that also merges. So we'll study more about that part in Yoga Sutras when we take that up, because it really gives us an idea. Yoga Sutra is a fantastic treatise on meditation. It really summarizes a lot of these Upanishads. Anyway, we'll come to that. So these are the three let me go back to that. The three forces of Ahankara. Not part of the 25 elements. That's why I didn't put them in any box. Okay. So for now, what I will do is I am going to remove these. I'm going to remove, just so we are clear. I want you to think about this. What is tamas to me? What does tamas mean to me? Based on what you heard today, what can tamas mean to me? So it's important we understand that. Okay. So for now, I'll just kind of roughly remove these things. Let me see if I can get a bigger razor. I don't mean to waste time here, but I think I want to make sure that we understand that this is, I don't want to confuse. As long as we have understood this, that is good. All right. Excellent. Now what we will do is go back to the drawing board, and now we'll fill in these boxes. So under sattva, you'll be surprised that the word here, now comes the elements. Now these are all elements. Okay. There are 10 here and there are 11 here. So 11 and 10, 21, and 4 makes it 25. So that is important for us to know that. Okay. So what is the fifth element here? M-A-N-A-S. Manas, also known as the mind. This is very important. Manas, mind, is actually a product of pure creative energy. So think twice before you start saying, I want to control my mind is a mad monkey. All of that is the application and all of that, because it gets caught in these senses. The boxes below are all the 10 senses we are going to talk about, right? Most of us have, we already touched upon that, but we'll briefly talk about it. That is what the mind is. But the mind by itself is actually a product of sattva. So that is why when you meditate, you go back, you find peace in your mind. The manas goes back into that creative idea. Where does creativity begin? In the mind, right? And where do you lose creativity also is the mind, because it gets caught in all the other senses. So what are these forces that come under the mind? How does the mind manifest itself? So let's see that. So mind has two basic functionalities. One is organs of perception. We have known this, right? So I'll write a Sanskrit word here. Jnana Indriya. Indriyas. Okay? So these are perceptions. And then you have karma Indriyas. Karma Indriyas or Karmendriyas. Jnanendriyas, Karmendriyas. You have 5 of them each. Both of these are manifestations of the mind. Okay, we'll hold on to that Karma Indriya for a few minutes, and we'll finish first the Jnana Indriyas. So from the mind comes the sense of what shall we put here? Hearing. The sense of touch. The sense of sight. The sense of taste. And the sense of smell. This is the sense. Remember, these are senses. Senses. These are all senses here. Senses. All of them are senses. When I say senses, it is a function of the brain. The function of the brain here. Right? You could have eyes, but then you have to see, right? I could be daydreaming and not able to actually see the person going in front of me. These things happen. So this is the function of the brain, the sense organ in the brain that helps your eye to see. So this is that. The mind, the function of the mind is a sense of perception. It's a very subtle thing there, but it is an aspect of the mind. Okay, so these are the 5 jnanendriyas that form part of the mind. Then you have so connected to this are the karmendriyas, the action. Okay, what are they? These are organs. Okay, these are also called senses, but they are more from the physical point of view. Karma, organs, physical organs. So you have locomotion as an organ. So karma indriyas, actually, so we will talk about it as feet for now. Hands, sight is eyes, taste is tongue, smell is nose. No, actually, sorry, 1 second. Let me hang on. Oops. Sense of taste, sense of sight, locomotion, hands movement, then you have sight, then you have taste, and actually you have mouth to speak. So we'll put mouth here. So you have karmendriyas, which have hang on 1 second, I'm sorry. Let me take this back for a second. Let me take these. Oops. Let me take this back. I wanted to explain it in a different way. So, karmendriyas, what are the senses of? Don't compare it. I was linking it with the jnanendriyas box by box. Let's not compare that. We will call this, let's take them all separately. So, we will first talk about the mouth, speaking, organ of speech. Okay. Then you have the feet. You have hands, hands, hands. Then you have mouth, you have hands, your feet. Then you have the sex organ. And then you have anus, organ of elimination. You have these 5. I may have to rearrange it, but for now we know these things. You have mouth, you have the sex organ, you have anus, you have hands and feet. These are the 5. We will rearrange it when we understand the bhutas and come to the other side. So this is basically our mind. Our mind comprises of 5 senses of action, 5 senses of perception. So where is the mind then? It is in our hands. Where is the mind? It is in our feet. Our mind is in the mouth. Our mind is in the anus that passes the stools. That's why they say watch the food that you eat, the quality of the stools. It gives you an indication of what kind of food you eat, what kind of mind you have, and all of that. Same with the sexual organ, the idea of procreation, the idea of wanting. All of this is part of the creative energy, sattva. All of that. Now you'll notice here, if you go back to this drawing, in this tamas, here in this area, there is hardly anything. I'm sorry, in rajas, there is nothing under rajas. There is nothing under rajas. There are boxes under the sattvic. There are boxes under tamas. There is nothing under rajas, other than simply saying rajas. Why? Because rajas is basically mixing these two together. Rajas is what's making all of this happen. Okay, the idea of being manifest into manifestation, another idea comes up, going back and forth, back and forth. So rajas is that mix that is making all of this happen. So under rajas, there is really nothing specific to show here. Okay, let's go to the tamas here. In tamas, under tamas, why is it called tamas? Before I even explain, why is it called tamas? Tamas means already manifested. Already manifested. The idea, the original creation, from the I, all of this emerged. From the I emerged the three gunas. From the gunas emerged the mind and all of these senses. And here, a whole creation manifested because of these senses of the mind. Imagine this creativity gives birth to this. Always remember it this way. So, when we go back to the drawing board here, tamas, you have what is called tan matras. Tan matra. Tan matra. Tan matra. Tan matra. Okay, let me see how to explain this. Give me a second so I have your attention here. Tan matra means just a particular element that has manifested only for one purpose. There's no mix there. Rajas does all the mixing. But now that is just manifested in a subtle form, just in that, begins to manifest in a subtle form, but that energy is only dedicated for that one particular purpose. Tan matra. Adi matram chalu naku means you say that, right? That is alone is enough. Matra there is just for that particular purpose, dedicated to that particular purpose, an element manifests. So let's go back to the drawing board there. So what is it, that element? What is that element here? So here you have the sense of sound. Sound is an element. The sense of touch. Here touch, and so I'll come back and compare these two, okay? Sound, touch, then you have sight, you have taste, and you have smell. How is this different from the one I just wrote under Jnanendriyas? How is that different? These are understood as energy forms. There is an energy called sound, which science can understand, you can understand, I can understand. Okay, sound is an energy by itself. But how about touch? Touch is actually an energy. Touch is an energy. Our brains can understand touch through the fingers and hands. That is a separate experience of the mind, right? But touch is tan matra, is an element out there that exists. Touch. Same thing, there is a sense of sight, which is an energy by itself. Sense of taste is an energy by itself. Sense of smell is an energy by itself. These are the 5 energies that are in the cosmos beginning to manifest as the 5 bhutas. So now, when you go back to the drawing, let me finish that. Then we'll begin to piece them together. Then you have the 5 bhutas. So pancha bhutas. Bhutas, what is bhutas? Bhutas means that which has already happened. Bhuta bhavishya, we say that, right? Bhuta means that is just already manifested. That is why they come under tamas. So this entire creation that you're seeing, going back to the drawing board here, So here you have space, akasha, right? Then you have wind, vayu. Then you have fire, which is agni. Then you have water, jala or apa. And then you have earth, which is matter. This is it, the 25 elements. How are the 25 elements? You have 5 panchabhutas, panchatanmatra, right? They both come under tamas. The sense of the power of sound manifests as space in a physical sense. The actual final manifestation. So the last column is the final manifestation on the cosmic side, on the universal side. If you see under the mind manifests itself under the Karmindriyas, locomotion, sense of touch, sense of procreation, and all of that. Elimination, speech. So if I want to rewrite this, I will put it like this. Or let me go back to that. Let me finish this real quick and then we can end the class. Might take a few more minutes, so bear with me. It's important for us to understand this part here. So here now we find that Karmendriyas, I will call this the organ of speech. Okay, here I'll call the organs of movement. Movement associated with hand. Okay, then comes the organ of locomotion. I'm just changing this because here it comes, I'm calling this locomotion from the point of view of feet. Movement is more of movement, this is locomotion. They both mean the same, but I'm just playing with words here to understand the movement of hands and feet. They are two different functions. One signifies the air element, one signifies the fire element. Okay, then we go down further, and then you have sexual organ. So procreation, sorry, let me write that as procreation. Procreation and elimination. Elimination. Now, the reason why I rewrote this was, perhaps didn't do a very clear job of explaining, but the reason why I rewrote this was because when I write hands and feet and mouth, these are actual physical organs. They come under the bhutas, right? But I had to write there initially so we can understand that. Now, if you link this diagram here, you have the sense of hearing, which is related to space, sound, which is related to speaking. So hearing and speaking becomes part of that subtle tanmatra here, the mind here. They're all linked. So the manas and the senses of action, the senses of perception, are the way you experience and I experience these pancha tanmatras and the 5 bhutas. How do we experience sound and space? Through mouth and through the sense of hearing, which is ears. So those ears and all, these are actual organs, right? Physically sitting there. That's how that panchabhutas reflect in actual manifestations of the body. The water element is there. We do that as meditation on the as we chant the Om, different centers, different bodies. All of these are panchabhutas. But the subtle part of it, there is sound, there is smell, there is taste. These are energies. Think of these panchatanmatras is a very important 5 energy systems that you need to meditate upon. Meditate upon them as energies in the universe, not necessarily your taste and your sense of smell. That is the mind. The mind makes it mine, and the mind applies that energy to its advantage or disadvantage. We can use the mind to apply these energies, but understand these 5 tanmatras as 5 pure energies solely dedicated for that particular purpose. So that taste is an energy. When we don't control that energy, that is why that energy controls us. We the taste becomes too much in our system. Taste is connected with water element. Water becomes too much like a storm, and so the taste cannot be controlled. Now link that to the sexual organ, procreation, all of that. They are all linked. So the water element, sexual organ, sense of taste, all of that is linked. Same thing with the sense of smell, with the anus, the process of elimination, the earth element. Health in the physical body is judged by your fecal matter. That's why they say give your stools for testing in medicine. Why? Because when they test your stools, they will know what is going on inside your system here, right? So that earth element there. So the sense of smell is actually an energy. Sense of taste is an energy. Sense of touch is an energy. That's why we have gurus touching us and causing healing. So healing happens when there's touch, because touch is an energy. Same thing with sound. Sound is an energy. That's why we talk about mantras and sound energy. And similarly is the sight, is an energy. It's an energy source. So think of it as actually existing in the universe as this part of the tamas. Just before space manifested, what was there? Sound. In pure vibration form. So the Om was there existing, let us say. It was purely in vibration. We couldn't hear the Om. Om is always meant to take your mind away from sounds because it's a vibration. Then space manifested. So that vibration causes space to manifest. Similarly, the element of touch manifests wind. So think of that. Think of that. And all of these begin to correlate, begin to harmonize, begin to balance, and bring about this creation. So everything that you see around you, whether you touch, whether you see, whether you smell, whether you taste, whether you hear, they are all part of these 3 gunas. What are these 3 gunas? Part of the one eye. What is this one eye? Manifestation of the brilliance. Where does the brilliance come from? From Prakriti when she begins to manifest. How does she able to manifest? Because of her association with Purusha. Because of the sankalpa that emerges, a brilliance manifests. From the brilliance comes the eye. The eye comes with the 3 qualities, and immediately these qualities begin to manifest creation. So the entire creation is understood in these 3 energy sources: sattva, rajas, and tamas. Rajas is the one that brings all of this together and creates that churning that we call life. So I could have perhaps done a better job in my presentation, so forgive me if I confused you all, if I'm too fast, too slow, I don't know. But I'm also learning how to teach these very complex theories, if you will, in a manner that we can all understand. So hope I made sense. Try and take some notes and draw this by yourself and try and memorize this. I took some time to memorize, so now I'm able to link all of them together, because when we begin to apply in our practice and understand why we are doing this, why do we need to control our senses, or why do we need to control the sense, we'll understand that these are all basically done from, not from a religious point of view, not from a morality point of view. All that is small little aspects. The bigger aspect is I'm trying to harmonize myself with the universal energies. These are energies in creation. So I want to harmonize myself with that. The water element with the sense of taste, earth element with the sense of smell, sight with the sense of fire, wind with the element of touch, and space with the element of sound. Once I understand the link and between that in creation and that which has manifested in my body as senses, then I get a very vast understanding of who this I really is. The I that I am, the real I, is that ahankar, which came directly from Mahat Tattva. Right? If you go back to that drawing, that's what you will see. From the Mahat Tattva, the I came. That is the I. But if you start saying I am short, I am tall, guess which of these boxes? You're going to the last box, which is called earth. and you're identifying yourself with that one little box down in that corner, saying, I am the earth element, I am tall, I am dark, I am white, I am black, I am whatever it is, right? So that I, from there, we have to go back to being the I am. The I am principle then merges into the brilliance. And so that is how we understand as this awakening of consciousness, enlightenment, going back to being the Purusha, is withdrawing the I that has got now enmeshed. This ahankara, which was just with three gunas, now with manifest all this, and rajas, and it's mingled with the gunas. It has become the gunas. So the I is now completely caught up in the gunas. So think of extricating the I from the gunas and going into Mahat. So the I ceases to exist. Thank you a lot for your patience and for giving me a chance to give you a glimpse of what Sankhya philosophy is. So as we go along now in our studies, we'll keep drawing upon this basic philosophy. And when I say earth element and sense of smell and anus as a sense organ, nostrils and all that, begin to connect them. And we'll keep coming back to this, don't worry. Because every time we revisit these five elements, this is all creation is all about. Nothing more than five elements. But every time you come to five elements, there's a different perspective, a different connection you will see. Then you will see the planets are linked to each of these five elements. Which planet is linked to what? We'll study that as we go along. But hopefully you got an idea of how the mind is linked in Sankhya. How is the mind seen? Where does the mind figure in this process of creation? How does the mind manifest the senses? And what is this real I? And where is this I of me as Sundar? Where does that fit in? You figure out and see how that little I has to go back to the big I, and the big I itself has to merge back into brilliance. That is enlightenment. Because in that brilliance, you go back to its unmanifest state. And then, of course, merging is complete. Enlightened living is one thing, merging is completely. So Jivan Mukti hi is one thing, and complete Mukti is different. That is why Samprajnata Samadhi and Asamprajnata Samadhi. The Asamprajnata is Nirvikalpa. That is the Purusha, becomes the Purusha. Savikalpa is where Prakriti is still there. There's still this beautiful glass door through which you can see the Purusha on the other side. But it's a glass door still separating you from the Purusha, if you will, in an analogy. So, thank you. And let's bring the class to an end. I know this perhaps was dry. I'm not sure if I made it interesting. But at least it gives you some room for thinking, some subject to think about, meditate upon. So thanks again for your patience. Let's bring this class to an end with one Om and three Shantis.